Good morning, everyone. Today we gather to honor the men and women who have given their lives in sacrifice to our country and our values. Before we begin, I would like to thank Sue Doherty from the Lunenburg Adult Activity Center, PAC, the Police and Fire Honor Guard, the Scouts, and I would also like to recognize the elected officials in attendance today, Representative Margaret Scarsdale, and Select Board members Tom Alonso, Michael Ray Jeffries, and Renee Emke. Now for the raising of the flag, the Lunenburg Police and Fire Honor Guard.
By the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
As we gather today to honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice, we would also like to extend our deepest gratitude to our veterans and their families. Your dedication, courage, and unwavering support are the backbone of our nation's strength. Veterans, you have bravely served and protected our freedoms, often at great personal cost. To the families of our service members, your resilience and sacrifices do not go unnoticed. We are profoundly thankful for the love and support you provide. Today, we salute you and thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your service and commitment. Our guest speaker today is Chief Warrant Officer 2 Armand Hunter. Chief Warrant Officer 2 Hunter has served for 23 years in the 101st Field Artillery Regiment, and he has 4 combat deployments. I now welcome him up for some remarks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. It is truly an honor to stand before you today as we gather to commemorate Memorial Day, a sacred occasion dedicated to honoring the men and women who have laid down their lives in service to our nation. Today we come together not just as individuals, but as a community and as a nation, united in gratitude and remembrance. I'd also like to acknowledge the 80th anniversary of the Normandy invasion, which is coming up shortly, as I was reminded this morning by a gentleman, a veteran of the Big Red One in Vietnam. I don't see him, but I know he's out there. Memorial Day is a day of reflection, a day to pause and to consider the immeasurable sacrifice made by our fallen heroes. To those personally connected to them, they were grandparents, spouses, parents, children, siblings, and friends. They were Democrats and they were Republicans. They lived in the penthouse suite and they lived in the poorhouse. They were college graduates with PhDs and they were high school dropouts with GEDs. They came from every corner of the nation and represent every race, color, and religion under the sun. Individually, they are as different as night and day, but that's not what's important. What's important is that despite their differences, they are united by a profound sense of duty and by an unwavering commitment to the ideals of freedom and democracy that make America the greatest nation this world has ever seen. As we gather here, it is collectively their courage, their valor, and their selflessness that we honor. This day holds special meaning for those who have been through the crucible of combat and experienced death firsthand. The same can be said for those Gold Star families who have lost service members in conflict. Men and women unfairly plucked from this earth before their time by war. No matter how many years have passed, we remember them in our minds as they were when they walked among us, frozen in time and never aging. They ease into our consciousness in the quiet moments we have to ourselves, or sometimes after accomplishments that they are not here to share with us. We think of them around the holidays, and we think about them when we reminisce about our time over there, and also on the anniversary of their deaths. When they do come to us, we should not dwell in sorrow and focus on their loss, but rather, we should dwell in happiness and in celebration of the lives that they did live. These men and women all have a story told best by those who knew them. They were practical jokers, hard workers, talented entertainers, amazing cooks. The list goes on and on. When I think of a friend of mine, Sergeant Robert Barrett, who was killed in Afghanistan in 2010, and I start to feel down, I like to think about the time we spent between missions, sitting outside of our bee huts, cracking jokes and unwinding, while he drew up tattoos and other artwork on a sketch pad that he brought with him. I think of the witty ways he'd complain about leadership and the boyish smirk he'd have on his face while he was doing it. I also think about how that young 20-year-old father volunteered to go to Afghanistan despite having a toddler at home, because he had spent a couple of years conducting military funeral honors, and he didn't want to keep burying soldiers without going over and doing his part, as he said. This fills me with an immense amount of pride and even inspired me to do more with my time in service when we returned. There are many similarly inspiring stories out there. Whether our heroes voluntarily joined or were drafted, agreed or disagreed with government policy at the time, they were all willing to raise their right hand and serve their country when it needed them most. They did this despite the risk to their lives, when they could have easily looked the other way or even run away to avoid their duty. I think that we could all draw inspiration from that level of dedication to this nation. And as we reflect on those that have made the ultimate sacrifice, let us also remember those who have returned from service bearing both visible and invisible scars. Today, as we pay tribute to the memory of our honored fallen, I urge each of us to also focus on the living, the veterans who walk among us. Our veterans are the living embodiments of the very values our fallen heroes died defending. They have faced the horrors of war, the separation from loved ones, and the challenges of returning to civilian life. While many have successfully transitioned back into their communities, others still face significant hurdles, be it physical injuries, mental health struggles, or difficulties in finding stable employment. As we gather here in the damp coolness of this solemn day, let our hearts remain warm with the desire to make a difference in the lives of our veterans. Let's let our remembrance be active and not passive. Let it inspire us to action. So what can we do? Here are a few ways each of us can contribute. I'm sure that some of you are already doing some of these. By evidence of you all being here, you're all doing some of these. The first, support veteran organizations. There are numerous organizations dedicated to helping veterans. Whether it's through financial contributions, volunteering, or simply spreading the word, your support can make a significant impact. Second, hire a veteran. If you're a business owner or in a position to influence hiring decisions, consider the unique skills and experiences veterans bring to the table. They can be leaders, team players, and problem solvers. You can also volunteer your time. Many veterans, especially our older veterans, need assistance with day-to-day tasks, transportation, or simply companionship. Volunteering at a local VA hospital or veterans home or veterans center can provide much-needed support and connection. We can advocate for veterans' issues. Stay informed about the issues affecting veterans and lend your voice to causes that seek to improve their quality of life. This can include advocating for better health care, mental health services, or education and job training programs. Lastly, and I think most importantly, reach out. Sometimes the simplest gestures can have the most profound impact. If you know a veteran, take the time to reach out. A phone call, a visit, a thank you note, even a quick text can make a world of difference. You never know what someone is dealing with. Let us carry forward the spirit of Memorial Day by committing ourselves to these actions. Let our gratitude for the fallen be reflected in our care for the living. Each of us has the power to make a difference, and together we can ensure that our veterans receive the respect, support, and opportunities they deserve for generations to come. To close, I'd like to share a short poem. The American writer, Archibald MacLeish, was a World War I artillery officer and combat veteran whose brother was killed in the war. In 1940, while serving as the Librarian of Congress, he wrote a poem for American Heroes Day to honor Library of Congress employees who had also died in the war. Titled, "The Young Dead Soldiers," it reads, "The young dead soldiers do not speak. Nevertheless, they are heard in the still houses. Who has not heard them? They have a silence that speaks for them at night and when the clock counts. They say, 'We were young, we have died, remember us.' They say, 'We have done what we could, but until it is finished, it is not done.' They say, 'We have given our lives, but until it is finished, no one can know what our lives gave.' They say, 'Our deaths are not ours. They are yours. They will mean what you make them.' They say, 'Whether our lives and our deaths were for peace and a new hope, or for nothing, we cannot say. It is you who must say this. We leave you our deaths. Give them their meaning. We were young,' they say. 'We have died. Remember us.' Thank you for being here, for your presence, and for your remembrance, and for your commitment to our veterans, both living and no longer with us. May we leave this place not with heavy hearts for those we have lost, but with hopeful hearts for the change we can create for those who still need our support. God bless you all, God bless our veterans, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Now I would like to welcome up Major Carl Rose and the Lunenburg 28th to guide us through a POW remembrance and placing of the memorial wreath.
From its beginning, the U.S. military has embraced the ethos, "Leave no one behind." The Latin phrase, "nemo residuo," is a commitment to the life of every military member and recognition that no combat-related injury, death, or missing troop is written off and never forgotten. According to the Pentagon's Defense Prisoner of War Missing Personnel Office, there are currently approximately 80,600 unaccounted for U.S. personnel. 41,000 of those were lost at sea, and the likelihood of recovery is impossible. Yet the U.S. military continues searching where they can. Last year, They recovered recovered and identified 27 missing in action. 88 from World War II, 35 from Korea, and 4 from Vietnam. Why keep searching? The answer is simple. You never leave a fallen American behind. Nemo Residio. Today I would like to recognize our POW MIA calling your attention to the round table, which will occupy a place of honor at the head of today's proceedings. The table is being set for one, symbolizing the fact that members of our armed forces are missing from our brothers and sisters. They are unable to be with us and their loved ones and families today, so we join them with this humble tribute. Let us pray that all of our brothers will soon again be among our ranks. The table is round, set for one to symbolize the helplessness of one person alone against this oppressor, and round to show that our everlasting concern for those who remain missing. The cloth. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their motives when answering the call to serve. The bread plate. A slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of their bitter fate. A pinch of salt symbolizes the tears of our missing and their families and the uncertainty that we all share. The rose. The single red rose reminds us of the lives of those Americans and the loved ones and friends who keep the faith, awaiting the return of our POW and MIA. The ribbon. The red ribbon tied so prominently around the vase represents the red ribbon worn upon the lapels and breasts of thousands who bear witness to the nation's unyielding determination to demand a proper accounting of all our POWs and MIA. The candle. The candle is a light of hope, which lives in the hearts to illuminate their way home, out of the hands of their oppressor and into the arms of a grateful nation. The Bible. The Bible is a book of faith to represent the strength gained through devotion to sustain those lost from our country, founded as one nation under God. The glass. The glass is inverted to symbolize their inability to share a toast with us tonight. The chair. The chair is empty. They are missing. They are not here. And the flag, symbolizing the country that they left. Remember, we called them comrades, brothers, sisters, friends. Do not let them be forgotten, for surely they have not forgotten us. We will now pause for a moment of silence in honor of our prisoners of war and missing in action. Thank you.
I now would like to invite State Representative Margaret Scarsdale to share some words of reflection.
Good morning, and thank you all so much for being out here today to dedicate this time to heartfelt reflection for all the service members who have dedicated their very lives so that each of us can enjoy some very precious freedoms. And I use that word precious deliberately because that is what freedoms are, and it is definitely not free. Many people think of Memorial Day as a long weekend or the unofficial start to summer or a chance to have backyard barbecues and get-togethers. And sometimes the weight and solemnity of this day get lost as we get caught up in the busyness of life in enjoying our freedoms. And of course, living life to its fullest is one of the ways we can honor those who have given their lives so that we can have that. But the true meaning of this day is dedicated to the men and women who gave their very last step and their last measure of full devotion to our country. They made the sacrifice, and there have been over 1 million of those sacrifices. Over 1 million men and women who set aside their personal comfort and their personal aims to defend our nation. Over 1 million men and women who gave up everything so that their family and their friends and even strangers whom they would never meet could enjoy every ounce of hard-won liberty. Memorial Day compels us to never forget that most solemn sacrifice that has been laid down around us. From Gettysburg to the Western Front, from Normandy to Okinawa, from the Mekong Delta to Kabul and Kandahar, from Fallujah and Ramadi to hundreds of battlefields where the lives of brave men and women were cut short. We must never set aside our responsibility to live in the example of those who cannot be with us, an example of honor, an example of courage, and an example of enduring allegiance to liberty and justice for all. I urge you to rededicate yourself to this responsibility on Memorial Day, to honor those women and men. Freedom is not free. This great American dream of liberty and justice is kept alive each and every day by those who have gone before us and by each of us for living it. This great American dream, the memories of those service members are kept alive through our commitment to honor those who, as Abraham Lincoln said, have laid so costly a sacrifice upon the altar of freedom. To all the servicemen and women here today, thank you for your service.
While the wreath is being placed, I want to acknowledge those who died in battle from our community here in Lunenburg. From the Civil War, Roswell G. Adams, Amos Billings, William S. Boynton, George E. Brown, John F. Butters, Clark Dutton, Albert Haynes, George Haynes, Albert Haywood, William Harrington, Charles Harris, Francis Hildreth, James Hildreth, William Hodgman, Orlando Holman, George Howard, Henry Kilburn, Eli Lancey, Charles Marshall, Charles Neal, Isaac Newton, Levi Parker, John Ramsdell, Marcus Spaulding, Ansel Stahl, Gardner Vaughn, Alonzo Whiting, Henry Whitney, Richard Wyeth, William Wyeth. From World War I, James Gravel, Walter Brown, Thomas Brown. From World War II, Frederick Cross Jr., Roderick Cross, Clarence Dyer, John Fortune Jr., Robert Gale, Kenneth Gove, Kauko Hopalanian, Alton Jones, Walter Monaghan, Jorma Polonin, Edwin Rill, Walter Rill, L. Frederick Schultz, Norman Tonseth, Wendell Way. From the Korean War, Richard Gay. From Vietnam, Richard Brooks, Glenn Hubbard, Byron Johnson, Robert Merrill, Wilbur Williams. And from Iraq, Christopher Holland. I want to thank everyone in attendance tonight, this morning, for being here with us. Specifically, I want to acknowledge the Scout 28s for their continued service to our community. I want to acknowledge the Lunenburg Police and Fire Honor Guard, always Sue Doherty for her assistance with us. I want to thank Lunenburg High School for the students Luigi DeCruz on taps, then also Brandon Harris. This is I think his third year with us, and next year will be his last. I want to just acknowledge everyone for taking the time. This is an important day in our lives where we come together as a community, reflect, acknowledge those who've passed, and get motivated for what comes next and what lies ahead. In all of this, we sacrifice for community, for all of us, for our freedoms. And I just want to thank all of us for being here this morning in the rain, and trust that everyone will have a wonderful day and continue to enjoy Memorial Day with your families and loved ones. Thank you again for being here.